Time's up, I done touchdown. I'm high stepping for the touchdown. I stay repping for the slums where the young bucks started loaded up just to bust rounds. I'm steady having flashbacks.
Welcome back to the AFC South Fan Battle Hype Podcast. A little bit different from the Monday one, only because of the fact that, it's me instead of Sam. But you know what? You're not going to hold it against me because all she does is talk about the Jags. So you know what? We're not worried about that. So we just want to let you know we are now on the Brawl Network. So you can follow us at the Brawl Network. You can follow at the Brawl Network on Twitter as well. Tonight with me, I have a couple of friends of mine and then a newly found friend of mine. So we're going to go ahead and just shout out a couple. First, we have Harish and Nookala with us.
Hey, guys. Hashtag TY's home, baby. He's back.
We also have Matthew Briggs.
No clever punchline at all. Sorry, guys.
That's fine. He's in Arizona. But and then, as I stated previously, we have a special guest with us tonight. A man that needs no introduction, except to a couple of y'all who just may need an introduction. So we have with us tonight a very, very, very esteemed guest by the name of Sean Pendergast. I want to thank you for coming on, Sean. And if you can, just please go ahead and just give us some information about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you guys having me. It's nice to get to talk a little Houston Texans. It's there really hasn't been much to talk about with the Texans lately, so it's really nice to get to talk some Texans football. It's just they've just been kind of just sitting there doing nothing for a couple of months. Nothing to see here. The quarterback doesn't have 16 lawsuits. It's really nice. We haven't talked about the Texans at all since the season ended. We've just been talking about the Rockets and the Astros, so it's really nice to get to. Oh no, we've been talking about the Texans for 4 hours a day. Every day on my show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m. on Sports Radio 610 in Houston. I do a national show on CBS Sports Radio on Sunday afternoons from 1 to 5 Central Time. That's been Texans talk. That's how you know, so I go in Sunday to do my Sunday show 2 weeks ago, and every Sunday show since the season ended, basically what I do, I feel like the host of Pawn Stars. Because I go in there and it's like, what do you want to give me for J.J. Watt? What do you want to give me for Deshaun Watson? I'm the Houston guy and I got all these cities coming at me on Sundays. And then it took a really dark turn within the last week. I'm like, well, no more. The Deshaun Watson trade store's not open anymore. We're just trying to make sure he doesn't get suspended for the year. And there's 16 lawsuits. So anyways, I'm excited to talk to you guys. For those in the audience listening who don't know, I do the morning show on Sports Radio 610, which is the Texans flagship here in Houston, with Seth Payne, who's an original Houston Texan who I know you guys have had on before on this podcast, who's great at what he does. So I know I've got a high bar to live up to with Seth. He's awesome. We've got the top-rated show in Houston. A lot of people listening, a lot of people coming to the store, and I do the pregame and postgame for the Texans as well on game day on the Texans radio network. So you guys. I'm not equipped to talk about a ton of things, great, but the Texans are one of them, so I'm excited to talk to you guys.
That's awesome. Definitely do appreciate you coming on with us.
Sure.
So, needless to say, Houston, for lack of better words, has not necessarily been the most scandal-free place within the last, year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And this Deshaun Watson stuff is crazy. Because, it's just ballooned into just a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And I mean, what is I think now we have a count of up to 22 women coming forward. And, what is the news that's coming out regarding this continuing to just balloon the way that it has? Has there been news from the organization? Has there been news from anybody, in the locker room? Or what's been the word around the Texans currently?
Yeah, well, I think the team is understandably kind of taking a very hands-off approach to this. They've put out a couple of statements about this. The first one, when the first lawsuit came to light, and the NFL said that they were the first one, when the first lawsuit came to light, they put out a statement saying we learned on social media like everybody else did about the stuff going on with Deshaun. which I think is indicative of maybe what the barrier of communication is right now between the two sides. They didn't know that they found out like the rest of us did on social media.
Yeah.
And Deshaun's probably like, yeah, now you know how I felt when I found out on social media that Nick Caserio is the general manager. So, and then they put out a statement after the NFL said that they were investigating Deshaun, basically just acknowledging that. So the team has not said really anything other than just they know what's going on and they're going to let the process play out with it. As far as just, I think, as far as the city goes and the fan base and how we talk about it every day, Deshaun's side finally spoke out yesterday on it. His attorney is Rusty Hardin, who a lot of people know is the guy who defended Roger Clemens, and he's defended Adrian Peterson. He's defended a lot of very high-profile athletes before. If you're an athlete who's in trouble, you go get Rusty Hardin. That's the rule. And Tony Busby, on the other side of this, is the attorney for all these plaintiffs. He's a very these are probably the two most high-profile attorneys in the city of Houston. Like this is an Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan situation with the two attorneys. Like these are two huge personalities and two prominent attorneys that are already, if you read the statements that Rusty put out and that Busby's already responded to Rusty's statement, like there's Scud missiles going back and forth between the two sides right now. So it's fascinating theater. We got a little bit of a window into what I think Deshaun's defense strategy is going to be, which is to acknowledge that stuff did go on in these massage rooms, but it was consensual. So I don't know how deep we want to get in the legal side of it. Just from an emotional standpoint for the city of Houston, I think you touched on it, which is we've endured a lot of stuff over the last 12 months, man. The last 12 to 14 months as a city, really beginning with the Astros sign stealing scandal, getting the manager and general manager of the team blown out the day after the Texans blew a 24-0 lead to the Kansas City Chiefs. So that was a rough 48 hours.
And then following up by the Hopkins trade
not the Hopkins trade right after COVID hit. Yeah. The only good thing I'm going to say, this is the only good thing I'm going to say about Bill O'Brien on this podcast is that he did make us forget about COVID for a couple of weeks in Houston, because all we did was just piss and moan about the Hopkins trade, and rightfully so, as it turned out. But the Hopkins trade, obviously everything with the Rockets and James Harden, and now everything that went on with the Texans during the season, and now with Deshaun Watson. And here's the thing, guys, like when I was already doing guest spots on literally about a dozen different stations around the country when Deshaun demanded the trade. So Houston and the Texans were already this massive curiosity nationwide because of Jack Easterby, the weird dynamics behind the scene, Bill O'Brien being made the general manager, Deshaun Watson, 4 months after signing the second biggest contract in the history of the league, wanting a trade. Like Houston was already this like three-eyed unicorn that everybody wanted to call me up about and find out what the hell is going on there. That was before all this stuff with Deshaun in the last week and a half. So
now your phone's definitely blowing up, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's all the same stations all over again. Like, they're like, boy, how crazy is it? I'm like, dude, it was already crazy. I talked to y'all 3 weeks ago because you want to trade for Deshaun. Like, it's all the cities. It's all the cities that have teams that would want to trade for Deshaun Watson, right? Like I'm a regular guest now in Denver and Charlotte, and New York, and Miami and Chicago and San Francisco in the Bay Area. But now everybody's certainly curious about what this means for Deshaun Watson, the person, what it means for Deshaun Watson, the player, and then probably selfishly what it means for their chances of getting Deshaun Watson. So it's crazy times right now.
That was my next question. So are teams still interested in Deshaun Watson, or are they like the Texans saying, hey, let me take a step back?
Yeah, I think, I've heard the teams are still interested in Deshaun Watson. What's interesting is, everything's about probability and statistics, right? Everything's about risk. So my biggest question is, and I don't know the answer to it, is what kind of phone calls is Nick Caserio getting right now for Deshaun Watson? We know that he was getting before all these lawsuits came. We know that he was getting phone calls about Deshaun Watson. depending on who you want to believe, he was either answering those phone calls or letting them go to voicemail. Seth and I interviewed Nick about a week and a half ago, maybe. It was on a Friday, I remember. It was before all this Deshaun stuff happened, but Seth and I had Nick on our show, and he said on the show he listens to all the voicemail messages, about Deshaun trade offers because it's all information, but he's not acting on any of it. My biggest question, I guess, would be if teams are still calling, do they think they can get Deshaun for 50 cents on the dollar? You know what I mean? Like, if a team, let's pretend
a Bill O'Brien trade.
Yeah, kind of, but with justification. Bill would trade guys for a second-round pick because he's impatient and he sucked at being a GM. Like, this is one, Seth and I were talking about this on our show today. Like a week and a half ago, Chicago called you up and said, we'll give you 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. You would have said, hell no. Your first-round pick this year is the 20th pick in the draft. And then the next 2 years, it's going to be a crappy pick because Deshaun Watson's your quarterback. You guys are going to go win 11 games a year, 12 games a year, and be picking in the 20s. So those are 3 very risky picks. Now, if Chicago called up with 3 first-round picks, if you're Nick Caserio, do you just go ahead and say yes so you can get the risk that's associated with Deshaun off of your ledger onto somebody else's ledger, and then you just move on? Because let's face it, there's a chance, I think it's a small chance, but there's a chance that Deshaun Watson is put into a situation, whether it's through the criminal system, the civil system, or the NFL, long arm of Roger Goodell, where you could get very little to nothing for Deshaun Watson. Like, that's still in play right now. I don't think it's the favorite, but that's still in play right now. So that's what's interesting about all this, guys, is that what was really going to turn into an eBay situation for Nick Caserio, where I think, 2-3 weeks before the draft, he was going to start answering those phone calls, going to start playing teams against each other, start really getting some packages that were going to allow the Texans to kind of hit that nuclear rebuild button. That's out the window now, because this stuff's going to drag. Unless Deshaun decides to settle next week with all these plaintiffs, this stuff's going to drag on, I think, well past the draft. And then once the draft comes and goes, well, then the Jets and the Dolphins having the 2nd and 3rd pick in the draft comes and goes. And now you're kind of in uncharted territory.
Gotcha. And, and the thing that I'm going to say has kind of been echoed is just because of, the timing of things. Because, we've seen that, one of the cases dates all the way back to March. And, I'm not going to necessarily sound insensitive or take away from validity because, any type of accusation of sexual assault is serious. But at the same time, it's just like, the word around everything isn't this timing, being that we've never heard of anything like this prior to maybe January, isn't the timing of this just kind of crazy? And if so, what has been the word that you've heard from these other organizations in terms of, well, this all just sounds extremely odd?
Well, the timing of it, the timing of all the lawsuits, there's 16 of them total right now. I know you guys touched on the number 22 as far as the total women. I think it's 24 now. There's 24 women that have reached out to Tony Buzbee. As of this afternoon, there were 16 that they filed lawsuits for. So there's 8 more that they're vetting, just to get the numbers out there. And you're right. As far as the footprint chronologically, the furthest lawsuit in the past, as far as the day that the actions in question happened, was March of last year. The most recent one is actually just within the last couple of weeks, March of 2021. So that's all within a footprint of about a year on the calendar. And I don't know if it's coincidental. Look, we know in March of 2020, COVID hit. So my guess is that part of Deshaun's defense is going to maybe involve whatever massage therapist he was using, that there was some sort of COVID impact on them and being unable to get to them. I don't know how believable that is, given the fact that his solution to losing a masseuse to COVID, if that were to be his strategy, would then all of a sudden be reaching out to a bunch of random people he's never met before on Instagram. I think if there's one thing, we don't know at this point, right? We don't know if Deshaun Watson is getting railroaded by all these, it's one of two things. Either Deshaun Watson is a sociopath, or these women are part of the biggest conspiracy of all time. So it's those two things. We don't know what it is at this point. But the one thing that we can say about Deshaun Watson is that at the very least he has very questionable hiring practices. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's a very famous person who thought that it would be a good idea just to DM random massage therapists, professional estheticians. I got a spreadsheet for all this stuff right now for all 16 lawsuits that lists all the job titles of each of the massage therapists. Like, that's where we are. You got to keep track of this stuff. Like, I got yes or no. Were they a single mom? Yes or no. Wow. Did Deshaun do this? Like, so I can quickly during the show look down and reference this stuff. So I say all that to say that at the very least, Deshaun Watson is guilty of probably having some very questionable hiring practices in terms of going out and just finding a bunch of people who at the very least put him in a position like this. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that what they're saying isn't true. We don't know yet. It hasn't been adjudicated. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying you're Deshaun Watson. You got to realize you're super famous. You work for an NFL team that I would imagine has resources out the ass that you can go get other massage therapists. So, if we all agree that the one thing we can agree on is that these things all, like these encounters all took place, right? Like in terms of just the dates, and he had encounters with these women, what the actual encounters entailed and what they constituted, that's what's up for debate. So, even if Deshaun Watson is exonerated of all this, there's probably some soul searching he's going to do. And I think even if he's exonerated of it, I don't think that means that he's free and clear of the NFL's conduct policy, which we know runs in a separate lane than the judicial system. So I think there's a lot to unpack for sure.
I think secondarily of that, and we tried to get some of this information, and we weren't very successful, right? You mentioned, the Texans have made a couple of statements. How much do they actually know? Do we know how much they know or how involved they are at this point, even though Deshaun has hired his own representation?
Yeah, we don't. Just what we know from those statements, that they learned of the first lawsuit on social media, and then they learned of the investigation of the NFL. That's all we know. Now, is that true? I have no idea, what they do or don't know, and they're certainly not going to tell the media what they do or don't know, because there are ramifications for that. The NFL conduct policy spells out pretty clearly that if you have a player who's involved in something that is, that's sketchy, that would appear to be a violation, and this certainly fits that. Yeah. That you notify the league of that. So I think, honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why the Texans were very clear in their first statement that they learned about it on social media, so that they can make it very clear to everybody out there that, hey, we're learning about this just like you guys are. This isn't something we've known about with Deshaun. At the very least, he's got a very weird masseuse habit, a compulsion. That this isn't something we've known about. So to answer your question, we don't know what the Texans know, other than what they've said in those two statements. And I think the Texans are wise. They're wise to just let this play out. And part of it is, the situation they're in with Deshaun. Deshaun wants out anyways. Yeah. To me, guys, it would have been really interesting to see what the Texans statement would have been if Deshaun Watson and the Texans were in a happy marriage with one another. Would they have come out a little bit stronger in their support of Deshaun? Mm-hmm. I think it begs an interesting question that we brought up a few times on our show, which is I wonder if Cal McNair has reached out to Deshaun privately just to say, hey, I want you to know, we love you. I know we've had our issues the last couple months, but, if you need anything, we're here for you, which would be the ultimate irony that if this is what it took to actually provide a platform for the Texans to smooth things over with Deshaun Watson. To be clear, I don't think that's going to happen. But these are all the angles that you can go at with this story. The story, it's a really, from a content standpoint, it's an incredible story. But if Deshaun were in a happy marriage with the Texans, it would be interesting to know if their statement would have been as generic and antiseptic as it was, as opposed to, he's our quarterback and we support him and so on. But, with Deshaun demanding a trade, he's making it fairly easy for them to just be kind of 30,000 feet acknowledging it. Yeah.
So long story short, this doesn't change the Texans' mind or Deshaun's mind of wanting to get out. Or as far as we know.
As far as we know, no. I don't think it changes Deshaun's mind. I don't think, again, if there was something that happened that would change Deshaun's mind, it's happened privately and we don't know about it. So I think, when we went through that scenario, guys, Seth and I on our show, like, okay, is this something that this could actually be a way to grease the skids for Deshaun to make up with the Texans? We talked about, I wonder if Cal reached out to him. The other thing that we thought of was, I wonder if Deshaun, after this is over, and some of it's timing, if this thing goes past the draft, Deshaun may have no choice but to come back to the Texans for a handful of games this year, just because the Texans aren't going to trade him in the middle of July. There'd be no worse time to trade him than in the middle of July and August. Like, at the very least, you wait till you know what the order of the 2022 draft looks like, so you can attack some of those teams up near the top of the draft to try to, like the Jets and the Dolphins were this year.
Right.
So Deshaun, forget where I was going with this. Crap.
Well, we got a question for you. It's from our host, Sam.
Yeah, except this is going to bother me for the rest of the time I'm on with you guys. I was going somewhere good with this. Hey, if you're on the chat, remind me of what I was saying before I was pointing out that Deshaun, that the Texans need to wait till the 2022 draft to do something.
But this is from our host, Samantha. She's a big Jaguars fan and an even bigger Gardner Minshew fan. Okay. And she said, would you want Gardner Minshew, and will you fight me for him?
Would the Texans want Gardner Minshew?
No, would you?
You personally.
Would I want him?
Yes.
Yeah, on the Texans.
On the Texans.
Oh, on the Texans. Okay, good. I'm like, this is a really personal one.
I'm trying to get awkward here.
That's what I thought you meant. That's what I was saying. Like, with the okay. So she's saying, would I want him for the Texans? Okay. I guess as like a fun bridge quarterback to go win 3 or 4 games this year. Like, I've accepted what the Texans are going to be this year. You know what I mean? Like, without Deshaun Watson, they're going to be, they're even with I like Tyrod Taylor fine. Like, I think he can go win a few games for you that you wouldn't win with your normal. Like, he's a really high level backup quarterback. They're a 4-12 or 5-11 team. So would I want Gardner Minshew for the Texans this year? Yeah, why not? He wears cutoff jeans. He's got a mullet. He's the rare 38th best quarterback in the league that actually has his own commercials for fantasy football. So, hell yeah, let's roll.
She also said what you were saying was the relationship with Watson mending in July would be a bad time to trade him, and how you wonder if McNair has reached out to Watson to mend the bridge. That's right. We were talking about has Deshaun mended fences with if Deshaun were to mend fences with the McNairs. Yeah, it's tricky because the timing may dictate that he's got to come back to the Texans anyways. If this thing drags into July, then it may very well be like he may sit out training camp because he doesn't want to play for the Texans. He may sit out the first 8 or 9 games. At the very latest, he'll come back for whatever game he needs to come back for to make sure that his contract doesn't roll over and toll for another year. Because what people don't know about Deshaun Watson's contract extension is that the big money, the $35-40 million, doesn't kick in until 2022. He's still on the 5th-year option of his rookie deal right now. So if he sits out, if he sits out the whole year, then everything just pushes into the future. His rookie contract goes another year.
Basically nullifies itself.
Yeah. So he's got to show up at least for a handful of games to make sure that he can start making the big money. So I don't think the two sides are making. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say was, and thank you, whoever the gal was on the chat there, is that not only do I think, okay, what if Cal reached out to Deshaun, but what if Deshaun, like after this whole thing, had some perspective to where he says, you know what, I was mad that they didn't call me when they hired Nick Caserio.
Yeah.
I was mad they traded DeAndre Hopkins. Man, I just spent the last month
staring my football mortality in the face. You know, I was spending the last month thinking about maybe getting suspended for a year or going to jail or all those things. You know what? Maybe this stuff that the Texans have done that got me so angry back in January, you know, maybe it's not that bad. You know, maybe I try to make the best of this situation. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's something that Seth and I have talked about. Is I wonder if this whole saga provides a different perspective for Deshaun, depending on what direction it goes. You know, like because Tony Busby, the attorney for the plaintiffs, he's submitting this stuff to HPD and to the district attorney for criminal charges. Now, are they going to bring criminal charges? I have no idea. But if they do, then it gets real. You know, then it's not – the punishment then isn't writing a bunch of checks to plaintiffs. It's not a 6-game suspension. It's jail time, you know, potentially. So that was the other thing. And that's what escaped my 52-year-old brain was just the perspective that Deshaun may or may not have after all this that might make him a little more amenable to coming back to the Texans. I think at the end of the day, Tyrod Taylor's their starter in week 1 is my guess. Yeah. Not Gardner Minshew.
Go ahead, Harish.
I kind of want to, change the topic on you here. I know Deshaun Watson's exciting and that's great and all, but we're still in the midst of free agency, right? Talk to us about what you feel about the moves the Texans are making, obviously specifically Nick Caserio. Where do you think this roster is going? You know, they were 4-12 a year ago. What do you make of the build of this roster? You know, it seems the idea is, it's a transition year and the year is going to be what it is. It sounds like they're expecting Watson to not be here, whether it's legal or whatever the case might be, right?
Yeah. I like what he's done. And to me, it's not about the names that he's bringing in. It's about the approach. Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby did so much damage to this team's roster, their draft equity, their salary cap situation with some of the contracts that they gave to certain people. That to me, my feeling was going to be, this is before they even hired Nick Caserio. This is when you could see the season going down the toilet in 2020. My feeling was going to be that, 2021, whether Deshaun Watson is here or not, 2021 has got to be about cleaning up the nuclear fallout from the Bill O'Brien era. And I said before Nick Caserio even gave out his first contract in free agency, I said, don't give out anything more than a 1-year deal. Just a bunch of 1-year deals, find some value, get through the year, try to win some football games. I'm not big in let's go 1-15 and pick first in the draft. That's not I got to go to the stadium every Sunday and do the pregame and postgame. I want to go, I want to watch a team that's at least fun. They may go 6-10, but I want them to be fun to watch. So I love his approach. I love that he's not giving out anything that's compromising the long term with this team. It's all 1- and 2-year deals, mostly 1-year deals. Even some of the 1-year deals, I like. I think there may be some players in there. Desmond King and Philip Lindsay and some of these other guys. That look, he's given out. I think it's 24 1-year deals that he's given out in free agency. So I'm going to need. I follow the team. I cover the team, and I'm going to need a program to cover this team this year. If he finds 5 or 6 players out of those 24 or 25 guys, he's laughing. These are the Texans are the world's biggest tryout this year. Is what they are. You know what I mean? They're like an American Idol audition for football. It's just they may as well line out the front and put little name tags on everybody, and then have them dance for Nick Caserio and Jack Easterby. Have them sing songs. But I think that's so. I love the approach. The names that are involved really don't matter to me very much. I just want to make sure that Nick Caserio, who is emboldened by the fact that he's got a 6-year contract that makes him one of the highest paid GMs in football. So he's got the backing of the organization to play the long play like this. Unlike Bill O'Brien, when he was general manager, he's making decisions where he's trying to keep his job for next year. He was making moves as if they were a Super Bowl contender. Well, in fact, all he was trying to do was make moves so the team could be 10-6 for the next few years so he could keep getting a paycheck. This is a much better scenario because not only is Nick Caserio a whole lot smarter than Bill O'Brien,
a much better evaluator than Bill O'Brien, actually trained to be a GM, not an average head coach like Bill O'Brien. But this is a team that's clearly looking at 2022 as the time when they're going to start doing really big boy football stuff.
Gotcha. And
we got another comment from Sam. She says, how do you feel about Chris Dropley Conley?
Hands of stone. I like the sign. Well, she's a Jacksonville fan, so she's watched more snaps of Chris Conley than I have, certainly. But I liked Conley when he was on the Chiefs. I didn't obviously watch a ton of him on the Jags this year, other than the 2 games, and I don't know if he was, I have no idea if he was active for the Texan games or not. From what I've seen of Conley, this is first of all, it's a 1-year deal. So honestly, like, if it doesn't work out, then you move on. But the Texans have a receiving core where the one thing they're really missing is size. Guys with traits. Their receiving core right now is Brandon Cooks, who's a speedy, smaller guy. Randall Cobb, who's an older, smaller guy. Kiki QT, who's a shifty, smaller guy. They've got all these small guys. Even if they had re-signed Will Fuller, what's he? He's a speedy, small guy. So they need some guys that actually have some dimensions to them. So I like this. It's a 1-year deal. So, if they gave him 4 years, $60 million, which Bill O'Brien definitely would have done.
Oh yeah.
Then I would have a whole lot more emotional. I have a whole lot more feeling about it. But I'm cool with it. Like, this isn't a team that's winning the Super Bowl this year. So if he finds himself, he cures the drops, and all of a sudden you got a guy who's 27 or whatever he is, and he runs a 4.40, and he's a bigger dude. He can catch some of that intermediate stuff for you as well. Then cool. If not, then it's a 1-year deal. You move on.
So now that we've talked about literally everything Houston under the sun, other than any other scandals, what do you see coming up as far as the Texans draft? Because you said a bunch of 1-year deals, but I mean, what are we looking at now, especially with the fact that you see that there's no first and second round pick and everybody's kind of in that flux? Like, what is your prediction? What have you heard? What do you see for the draft for the Texans?
Well, I mean, a lot's changed in the last 9 days, right? Yeah. With Deshaun Watson, when Deshaun Watson had not gotten hit with, 16 lawsuits, then we were looking at quarterbacks. We were talking about Zach Wilson on our show. We were talking about Justin Fields on our show. We were talking about who the best defensive players are in this draft. Because you think if you're going to trade with the Jets or the Dolphins, you're trading with the Jets, you're getting picks 2 and 23, maybe even 34 also, right? Because they got Seattle's first. So you're talking about getting 3 picks in the top 34. You do a trade with the Dolphins, they've got 3, 18, and 36. And the biggest kick in the junk is that 3 and 36 are actually your picks originally that you traded for Laramie Tunsil. Nevertheless. So, but you're talking about 2 teams where potentially you could have had 3 picks in the top 36 picks in the draft. And now with Deshaun and his situation, well, that's out the window. So now you're back to, barring some massive shift in what's been going on with all this stuff, you're talking about the Texans' first pick in the draft being 67th overall, So that's the other thing I should tell you guys. Like, I cover the draft for the Texans too on their radio network. I usually do day 3, which is rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I've been joking all the time. Assuming they're still going to have me back to do the draft coverage, I don't know. I've had a lot of bad things to say about Jack Easterby and whatnot, so who knows?
Oh, yeah, you might be.
You're going to be the busiest guy on the
Yeah,
you're going to be the busiest guy out there.
Right, so who knows? But assuming they do have me back, day 3 is going to be lit for the Texans. They've got 7 picks on day 3, man. They got like 3 sixth-rounders and 2 fourth-rounders. And I think it's a draft. You know what I think it is, guys? I think it's a draft where if you're the Texans, there's a third-round pick and everything else is day 3. Mm-hmm. So take some big swings. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be some guys that fall into the 3rd and 4th round that were probably first-round talents but had an ACL in college, or where they were 5-star recruits in high school. They didn't quite get to where they needed to be, though, at Georgia or Alabama or whatever. But maybe you get them with the right position coach and they get in the right system and you get more out of them.
Well, and COVID has to be a factor, too, because a lot of,
Yeah, we actually asked Nick about that when Seth and I had him on, and he said, yeah, it's, it makes it harder to evaluate. I don't know that drafting just in rounds 3 through 7, that there would be a bunch of guys that the Texans would be picking where you need to sit them down and look them in the eye in the same room. You start getting into the 3rd and 4th round, these are lotto tickets. You know what I mean? Yeah. But he did say, like, it does make it harder to evaluate. There's no combine. So I think the Texans are in a great position where, take some chances with those picks. I think they may be less inclined to take risks on guys who fall to the 4th round because of character issues, just because of what's going on with Deshaun right now. And I'm not saying Deshaun's guilty of any of this stuff. I'm just saying they may want to steer clear of anything that's got any sort of controversial conduct smoke to it.
Anything even viewed as a slap on the wrist could be like an automatic red flag for.
Yeah. And they've always been a team that's kind of erred to the side of caution when it's come to anything having to do with conduct issues to begin with. So it's probably more like taking risks on guys who had injuries or got traits and things like that. So I think that's what you do. I mean, you're drafting 67th overall, and then the rest of your picks are on day 3. So take some risks. You're not really, as I pointed out earlier, you're really not triggering the heavy part of the rebuild till 2022 anyways. If Deshaun's situation carries on past the draft to where they can't trade him, then you're not trading him till the 2022 draft anyways. Yeah. So why, so I wouldn't even mind if they took some of these picks and traded them for picks in 2022. You know what I mean? Like if somebody really saw somebody they liked at the 67th overall pick, if they got on the phone and said, we're going to give you our 2nd next year for your 3rd this year, that's sort of the normal time value of draft pick is usually around, right? Like, we'll give you a 2nd next year for the 3rd this year. I wouldn't mind if they did that and then just made 2022 the year where they really hardcore start the reset. Why burn a year of rookie contracts on a bunch of guys when you're going to go 3-13 anyways? You know what I mean? So I think there's some intriguing directions they could go. It's definitely not going to be the influx of talent that you need with this draft unless they trade Deshaun. And if they trade Deshaun, then the story of this draft just shifts dramatically. All of a sudden, then they become the most intriguing team on Thursday night, the night of the draft, if they trade Deshaun.
Gotcha. And one of our commenters, speaking of misconduct, one of our commenters said, "Don't draft a player from Georgia," making fun of the Tennessee Titans with Isaiah Wilson. Of course. Yeah.
Was he speed racing today or something? Is that what I saw?
Probably.
Listen, honestly, you could probably just put a bunch of things that you can go to jail for, put it on a dice, and then just roll it and see what happens. And that's what Isaiah Wilson has done today. Like the guy who's been. I would say crapshoot, but that's being delicate.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Well, before we let you go, I asked this of all of our guests, and like we said before, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but you've been in the line of sports for a while. Who is the biggest dick that you've been around and, had to come in contact with?
Oh, in contact with? Okay, well, let me say, I've never had a bad experience with any of the Texans. The Texans that I've talked to, done shows with, I did a weekly show with Arian Foster back in 2011 at my old station.
Really?
Yeah, I did. He and I did a weekly show together. And if there were ever anybody who would line up just like from what people hear about Arian to fit what you're talking about, it would be Arian Foster, because he can be a little aloof sometimes. I love Arian Foster, just to be very, very clear. But he, but Arian's he's kind of a weird cat, we did an hour-long show, and I know I'm not answering. I'm going to answer. I have an answer to your question, I promise. But Arian and I did a show. It was an hour-long show weekly in 2011, which was his 2nd full season in the league. I mean, this is back when the height of Arian Foster being a beast.
Yeah.
And he would want to talk football for maybe 6 minutes of the 60 that we did the show together. The rest of the time, we may as well have a bong in the middle of the table the rest of the time, because he wanted to talk about Egypt and dreams, not dreams like things he aspires to do, literally what he dreamt about the night before. He's like, yeah, I dreamt. Do you know the word circa? And I said, yeah, I know the word circa. He goes, and he's like, it's the coolest word ever. I said, why do you say that? He goes, I had a dream last night. And in my dream, I looked up and there was a mountain. And all of a sudden behind the mountain in neon, the word circa just popped up over the mountain. And I said, you're a weird dude, man. I'm doing this show with you. So Arian's awesome. The biggest dick that I've ever met easily was Warren Sapp.
Wow.
Easily.
I could see that.
Sapp. Yeah. Easily Warren Sapp. That's like when Warren Sapp got caught with those hookers or whatever, I was like, yes, hookers, get him. You go, hookers. The story behind that, and it's not like I did a weekly show with Warren Sapp, but my experience with that was I was at the Super Bowl in 2014 in New York. That was the Seahawks and Broncos Super Bowl that was at MetLife Stadium. So we were at Radio Row, and it was my first Radio Row with Sports Radio 610. So I've been with the station for like 3 weeks, and my older son was turning 16 that week. So I was having each of the guests. I mean, you guys probably know if you've either been to Radio Row or you've heard about Radio Row or listened to radio from Radio Row. It's all just players, former players, and celebrities coming by and doing interviews all day long, right? And some of it's good and some of it's bad and whatever. Yeah. But Warren Sapp came and did an interview. And so what I was doing with each celebrity that came up to our table, once the interview was over and we would go to break, I would say, hey, it's my son's birthday. Would you mind just saying for 10 seconds, wishing him a happy 16th birthday? And then what I was going to do was splice all those videos together into like a 3-minute montage of happy birthday from all these different players and celebrities.
That's pretty badass. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's, we're radio hosts, I don't make $1 million a year to buy my kid a Porsche or anything like that. So I got to give him cool things like videos from celebrities saying happy birthday to him. So to a man, they were all cool as hell. Like everyone I asked, cool as hell. We interviewed Warren Sapp. I asked Warren Sapp. He looked at me like I asked him for a sexual favor or something like that. Like he looked at me, and he's like...
He looked at you like one of those hookers, huh?
Yeah, right. I'm like, no, I'm not your type. I've seen TMZ. But he couldn't have been a bigger dick about it. Like he made me feel like this tall. And ever since then, like Warren Sapp, easily my answer is
so he didn't say happy birthday to your son, huh?
No, he just walked. He looked at me, scoffed at me, did one of these, like I asked him to do something strenuous. Like he could have said happy birthday. He could have given me 5 seconds, and I would have been like, "That's the most badass thing ever." And he, whatever. So that's a guy where I look at. He deserves whatever he gets coming to him in any situation in life. Warren Sapp. That's how I feel about it. So that was the Super Bowl where Kevin Costner twisted my left nipple. Do you guys want a quick story about that?
Oh, Lord. I want that one off camera because we're almost out of time.
Okay, however, all right.
We're definitely going to get that, though. But just a couple things, like I said, before we go, just want to go. But I know you heard the news today, and you've heard the news about the owner of NRG Stadium. T.Y. Hilton has re-signed with the Colts.
I was like, when you said that, I'm like, oh, I don't know this.
They got me.
I was like, hold on, I got to look.
10 seconds, I was like, oh, crap, I don't know this. I better know this by 6 a.m. tomorrow, though. Yes, I did hear about T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, I had to mess with you because I was just like, as soon as we saw the news of T.Y. getting re-signed, I was like, oh, yeah. This is going to be absolutely insane. And they're just like, oh, well, T.Y. Hilton didn't do that much last year. We're just like, yeah, but he always finds a way to just terrorize the Texans somehow.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. So I know that doesn't necessarily resonate with you. I don't.
Hell yeah, it does.
It'll resonate with that defense.
What are you talking about? It doesn't resonate with me. You know how many miserable Sundays that guy's caused me? Yeah, it doesn't resonate with me. That resonates more than Warren Sapp. I'm going to tell you that. Yeah, no, I didn't like seeing that at all, man. Like T.Y. Hilton. Literally, there was a point. I think so. He came in the league in 2012. So last year was 2020. So 2012 to 2019 is exactly 8 seasons. So he had played exactly 16 games against the Texans coming into this past season, which makes it really easy because 16 games is a normal length of an NFL season until today, when I guess they're going to do 17 games now. But 16 games is the season we've all become accustomed to. So it was really easy last year to look at what T.Y. Hilton's performance has been against the Texans because he played exactly 16 games against them. And I remember looking at his numbers. I'm like, this is awesome. He's basically Megatron against the Texans. What he is. Like he's got in 16 games, he's got like 104 catches for an average of like 19 yards a catch and 11 touchdowns and so much whiskey that he's made me drink. And, yeah. 1 year, $10 million. That's a hell of a deal, man. Chris Ballard's a witch. He's really good.
He made you.
Oh, don't worry.
Clowns, huh?
We know.
Yeah,
we know.
Did he make you scared of clowns? Then
I was already scared of clowns. That was funny before the playoff game. It was less funny after they won 21-7. It was funny before the game.
Listen, Sean, it has been an absolute blast as advertised. What can I say other than thank you so much for coming on? We hope to have you back in the future. For everybody, including myself, who is now a fan, much to Colts fan chagrin, let us know where to find you regularly and also on social media.
Sure. I appreciate you guys letting me do that. If you ever want to listen to me and Seth, 6 to 10 a.m. Central Time on Sports Radio 610, the app is the radio.com app.
Okay.
It's the app for our parent company, which is Entercom. It's their whole family of stations are on that app, but the radio.com app is how if you want to listen to us out of market. We're on mornings, Monday through Friday. I do a national show on CBS Sports Radio on Sundays from 1 to 5 Central Time. Also on the radio.com app on CBS Sports Radio. And if you want to find me on Twitter, it's at Sean T. Pendergast on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on all those platforms, man. When all this news is popping, you got to be plugged into the audience out there. So I enjoyed coming on with you guys, man. This was a lot of fun. I'm happy to do it anytime you guys want me to.
Absolutely. You're always welcome. You're part of the AFC South fan battle family officially. You've been knighted, indoctrinated, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, but we'll go with that.
Hey, are you guys impressed that I managed to stay engaged in the conversation while my TV back there turned green for like 10 minutes? I don't know what was going on.
I did notice it. Yeah, I did notice it.
Dude, can I just tell you, when that whole system back there, those 3 TVs doesn't work, I would rather have one of my bodily organs not working than have my wall of TVs not working. Like, my wife makes so much fun of me. She's like, you get so stressed out when there's something wrong with the TVs. I'm like, I know. It's so much a part of me. It's a bigger part of me than my spleen.
Yeah, I didn't want to point it out. It's just like, I know that, you know.
I saw it. I was trying to challenge myself. I'm like, I'm going to stay plugged into this conversation. I lost my mulligan when I lost my train of thought on the Deshaun Watson thing. So I'd already used up my mulligan of Seth is the one who's supposed to have memory problems because he's got probably a CTE from getting hit in the head for 10 years. I'm supposed to be sharp on this stuff. I'm allowed to say that. He jokes about it himself.
Yeah, he's fine. But absolutely, it's been a pleasure having you on here. For everybody else, just want to know, it's just like, Harish, Matt, where can we find you normally?
You can find me at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at the Uncle Gandhi. That's UNCLEGHANDI. And you can find me in the Facebook group, in the AFC South Fan Battle Facebook group.
Wait, it's GHANDI?
Yep.
I've been following the wrong guy this whole time.
Nice.
I bet, yeah.
I'm surprised there's another Uncle Gandhi out there.
The best would be if he showed up on the Zoom call.
Yeah, exactly.
Who the hell are you?
He's like, abandoned ship does not Harish.
You can find me at Fan Battle Briggs. And also, Sean, I don't know if you know this, but we've been on a campaign of getting the legendary Pat McAfee on our podcast. Every day we've been tweeting at him. So today is 59. You know, we're trying. We got him to follow us, But today's 59. We're not stopping till we make it happen.
That dude is awesome at what he does, man.
Very good,
He's really good. Brand building, energy level. He's excellent, and he's a big wrestling guy too. So I appreciate that.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
We might have to challenge him to a match in order to get him on here.
You may have to. Yep.
And I have no problem doing that because, I mean, I'm slightly athletic. So, I mean, top rope, elbow drop, don't
Hell
care.
yeah.
Suplex City on him, I don't care.
Suplex City.
All right. Well, listen, hey, we'll actually just end all together because we're well over time. Sam is going to be mad, but you know what? I don't really care. She has this thing about Gardner Minshew, and then she also mentioned in the group about
Thank you, Sam.
Jalen Ramsey and Deshaun Watson having the same agent. Listen, okay, whatever. Sam, you love this. This was amazing. But other than that, everybody, thank you. Once again, thank you for tuning in to the AFC South Fan Battle Hype Podcast. You'll actually be able to listen to this on all major platforms, whether it be Spotify, I believe Amazon Music, Apple Music, Podcasts, however they do that now. They always rebrand somehow. But other than that, have a great rest of your night. Once again, shout out to the Brawl Network, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Hashtag TY's home.
But I don't think so.